The collision alarm screamed for exactly 2 seconds before my Hornet-class interceptor punched through the hull of the Vaelori dreadnought like a bullet through paper. I didn't have time to think, just react. The emergency foam flooded my cockpit as the world became a spinning nightmare of sparks, torn metal, and the shriek of atmosphere venting into space. Then, silence. I hung upside down in my harness, blood dripping from a gash on my forehead, watching it float upward in the 0G. The foam had hardened around me, probably the only reason I still had lungs. Through the cracked canopy, I could see I'd carved a trench through what looked like a command deck. Alien consoles sparked and flickered. Bodies in elegant silver armor lay scattered like broken dolls. And standing in the middle of the destruction, untouched, was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. She was tall, 7 feet at least, with skin the color of deep ocean and eyes that burned like molten copper. Her armor was white and gold, ornate but clearly functional, and the blade in her hand hummed with energy that made my teeth ache. 4 other Vaelori flanked her, weapons raised, but she held up a hand. Hold, die. Her voice was like ice cracking. She walked toward my ruined ship, each step deliberate, and crouched to peer through the shattered canopy. Those copper eyes studied me, like I was an insect pinned to a board. A human, she said, and the word dripped with contempt. Your kind truly has no sense of self-preservation. I tried to speak, but only managed a wet cough. She tilted her head. Commander Veyra, one of her officers said, we should execute it, and I said, hold, Toreth. She reached through the broken canopy, her hand closing around my flight suit's collar. With one arm, she tore me free of the wreckage and dropped me on the deck like a sack of wet grain. I gasped, finally able to breathe, and looked up at her. I crashed into her flagship. She dragged me from the wreckage. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. Almost. You find this amusing, human? Commander Veyra's blade hovered an inch from my throat. No, ma'am. I coughed again. Just processing. Process faster. You have destroyed my forward sensor array, killed 11 of my crew, and interrupted a critical battle operation. She leaned closer. Give me one reason not to open your throat. The ship shuddered. Explosions, distant, but heavy. The lights flickered. Because, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, whatever's hitting you right now, I know how to stop it. Her eyes narrowed. You expect me to believe a primitive from a species we've been at war with for 6 cycles has tactical knowledge I lack? No. I met her gaze. I expect you to believe that the Kreth Dominion just used the same ambush pattern on your fleet that they used on ours at Helios Station, and I'm the only human who survived that massacre. The ship shook again, harder this time. Somewhere, metal screamed. Commander Veyra stared at me for a long moment. Then, she sheathed her blade. Toreth, get this human to the medical bay, keep him alive. She turned away, already barking orders. And someone tell me why my flagship is being torn apart by insects we should have crushed hours ago. I let them drag me away, my mind racing. The Vaelori had been our enemies for 6 years. They'd burned 3 of our colonies, killed millions. And now I was on their commander ship, offering to help them fight a common enemy. War makes strange bedfellows. But as I watched Commander Veyra stride toward her command throne, shouting orders in that crystalline language of hers, I realized something else. The Kreth had ambushed us both. They'd played us against each other while they prepared for this moment. And if we didn't figure out how to work together in the next few hours, neither of our species would survive the night. The Vaelori medical bay was cold, sterile, and clearly not designed for humans. The medic, a younger Vaelori with pale blue skin and an expression of barely concealed disgust, had sealed my wounds with some kind of biofoam and jabbed me with enough stimulants to wake a corpse. Your physiology is inefficient, she said, like she was commenting on a broken machine. Thanks. I'll file a complaint with evolution. She didn't understand the joke. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care. The door hissed open, and Commander Veyra strode in, flanked by 2 officers. She'd removed her helmet, revealing a face that was angular and severe, framed by hair the color of starlight. There was a cut on her cheek. She'd been in the fighting too. You're alive, she said. Good. Now talk. I sat up, ignoring the protest from my ribs. The Kreth are using a dispersal pattern we call the net. They spread their lighter ships wide, draw your attention to the flanks, while their heavy hitters punch through the center. Your fleet is responding exactly how they want, spreading thin to cover the perimeter. Our doctrine demands we protect all vectors of approach, one of her officers said. A male, older, with scars on his face. To do otherwise would be suicide, I finished. Which is what you're committing right now. The Kreth don't care about your flanks. They're hurting you. In about 20 minutes, their dreadnoughts will converge on your center, and your fleet will be too spread out to respond. Commander Veyra's eyes hadn't left mine. How do you know this? Because I watched them do it to the Terran Third Fleet. I held her gaze. 47 ships. 16,000 sailors. I was a tactical officer on the TNS Resolute. We figured out the pattern too late. I got to an escape pod. Most didn't. Silence. The older officer, Toreth, I remembered, shifted uncomfortably. You expect us to trust the word of an enemy, he said. I expect you to look at your tactical display and see I'm right. Veyra turned to a console, her fingers dancing over the controls. A holographic display materialized, the battle in miniature. I could see it immediately. The Vaelori fleet, spread in a defensive sphere. The Kreth ships, seemingly chaotic, but I could trace the pattern now. The net was closing. He's correct. Veyra's voice was quiet. The Kreth heavies are converging on bearing 77 Mark III. Our center will be exposed in... She paused. 18 minutes. Commander, we cannot restructure our entire formation based on the word of a human prisoner, Toreth protested. Then base it on mathematics, Toreth. She turned to face him, and I saw something in her expression. Not fear, but the weight of command. The knowledge that every decision meant lives. The human's analysis matches our sensor data. We were so focused on their movements that we missed the pattern. What do you suggest? I asked. She looked at me, and for the first time, there was something other than contempt in her eyes. Calculation, maybe. Assessment. You survived this tactic once. How? We didn't. That's the point. I stood, moving to the display. But I've spent 2 years running simulations. Wargaming it. Figuring out what we should have done. I pointed to the center of the formation. You don't spread out to meet them. You do the opposite. You collapse your formation into a tight fist and punch through their center before they can close the net. That's insane, Toreth said. We'd be abandoning our flanks entirely. Your flanks are already lost. You just don't know it yet. I traced the Kreth movements. Their light ships can't hurt your capitals. They're just bait. But if you keep chasing them, you'll be out of position when the hammer falls. Veyra studied the display, her expression unreadable. The ship shuddered again. Another hit. Commander, the communications officer called out. The Radiant Spear reports heavy damage. They're requesting permission to withdraw. Denied. Tell them to hold position. Veyra's jaw tightened. All ships, begin formation collapse. Tighten to defensive cluster, 7. Commander! Toreth stepped forward. You cannot, I can, and I am. She turned to face him fully, and I saw the steel in her. I have lost enough ships to these creatures. If the human is wrong, we die fighting in formation rather than scattered like prey. If he is right, she glanced at me. Then perhaps there is more to his species than I believed. The orders went out. On the display, I watched the Vaelori fleet begin to shift, contracting like a closing fist. The Kreth flanking ships seemed confused, their neat pattern disrupted. It's working, I said. It's beginning, Veyra corrected. The true test comes when their dreadnoughts arrive. She moved closer to me, close enough that I could smell something like ozone in winter. If you have deceived me, human, I will not kill you quickly. If I've deceived you, we'll both be dead anyway. I met her gaze. So let's focus on not dying. Something flickered in those copper eyes. Not warmth, not yet. But maybe the first crack in the ice. What is your name, human? Cole. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Cole, Terran Navy, Marcus Cole. She tested the words. Very well, Marcus Cole. You will remain on my bridge for the duration of this engagement. If your tactics fail, you will witness the consequences firsthand. And if they succeed, she was already walking away. Then we will discuss what comes next. I followed her to the bridge, my heart pounding. I was an enemy prisoner on an alien warship, about to help them fight a battle that could determine the fate of 2 species. No pressure. The Kreth dreadnoughts emerged from their concealment like monsters rising from the deep. There were 6 of them, massive, ugly things bristling with weapons, their hulls scarred from 100 battles. They'd been hiding in the sensor shadow of a nearby moon, waiting for the Vaelori fleet to spread thin enough to slaughter. Instead, they found a fist waiting for them. All ships, concentrate fire on the lead dreadnought, Veyra commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos of the bridge. Designation, Kreth Alpha. I want it dead in 60 seconds. The Vaelori fleet opened up. Plasma lances, kinetic accelerators, missile swarms, everything converged on a single point. The Kreth Alpha's shields flared, held, then collapsed. The ship broke apart, in a bloom of fire. 1 down, I said. 5 remain. Veyra's expression didn't change. And they're adapting. She was right. The remaining Kreth dreadnoughts were spreading out, trying to flank the compressed Vaelori formation. Their lighter ships were regrouping, forming attack runs. They're going to try to crack us open, I said. Force us to spread out again. Recommendations? I studied the display, my mind racing. The Vaelori formation was holding, but it couldn't last. They were taking hits from all sides now, and even their heavy ships couldn't absorb punishment forever. We need to break their coordination, I said. The Kreth use a centralized command structure. Take out their command ship, and the rest will fall into disarray. Which one is the command ship? That was the problem. Kreth vessels all looked alike, deliberately so. They'd learned that lesson from fighting us. I don't know, I admitted. But I know how to find out. Veyra turned to look at me. Explain. The Kreth commander will be the one giving orders. That means communication bursts. Your sensors can track those, right? Our communications array was damaged. She paused. When you crashed into it. Right. There's another way. I took a breath. Someone needs to get close enough to visually identify the command ship. The Kreth marked their flagships with a specific hull pattern. 3 parallel scoring marks near the bridge. It's subtle, but it's there. A suicide mission, Toreth said. No ship could survive that close to their formation. Not a ship. I looked at Veyra, a fighter. One small craft, running dark, slipping through the chaos. Get close, identify the target, relay the coordinates. We have no pilots to spare, Veyra said. And our fighters are not designed for, I'll do it. The bridge went quiet. Even the constant chatter of damage reports and tactical updates seemed to fade. You? Toreth's voice dripped with disbelief. A human? In a Vaelori fighter you've never flown? I've flown 37 different spacecraft. I learned fast. I stepped toward Veyra. Your people are dying out there, Commander. Every minute we spend arguing is another ship lost. I can do this. Why? Veyra's voice was soft, but her eyes were sharp. Why would you risk your life for us? We are your enemies. I said. Right now, the Kreth are everyone's enemy. And I didn't survive Helios Station just to die watching someone else make the same mistakes we did. She studied me for a long moment. I could see the calculation in her eyes, the weighing of risks and rewards, the assessment of my worth. You would die for people who have killed your own. I die to stop the Kreth from killing anyone else. I held her gaze. Human, Vaelori, it doesn't matter. Some things are bigger than old grudges. Something shifted in her expression. The ice cracked a little more. Toreth, prepare a Whisper-class interceptor for the human. She turned back to me. You will have one chance, Marcus Cole. Do not waste it. I won't. 20 minutes later, I was strapped into a Vaelori fighter that felt like it was designed for someone with extra joints. The controls were intuitive enough. Thrust, weapons, shields. But everything was in the wrong place. I'd have to fly by instinct. Cole.ol. Veyra's voice crackled through the comm. The fleet will create an opening on your mark. You will have approximately 90 seconds before the Kreth close the gap. Understood. And Cole. A pause. Return alive. That is an order. I smiled despite myself. Yes, ma'am. The launch tube spat me into hell. The battle raged around me. Ships burning, weapons fire crisscrossing the void, debris spinning in silent chaos. I killed my engines and let momentum carry me, running dark like a ghost through a graveyard. The Kreth formation loomed ahead. 5 dreadnoughts now, surrounded by swarms of smaller ships. I wove through the chaos, my heart pounding, searching for those 3 parallel marks. There. The second dreadnought from the left. 3 scoring marks near the bridge, almost invisible unless you knew what to look for. Veyra, I have the target, Kreth Beta, bearing 3 Mark 7. That's your command ship, confirmed. All ships, concentrate fire on Kreth Beta. Everything we have. The Vaelori fleet pivoted as one, 100 weapons converging on a single point. The Kreth command ship's shields flared under the assault. But I'd been spotted. A Kreth interceptor screamed toward me, weapons hot. I jinked hard, but the Vaelori fighter was sluggish compared to my Hornet. The first shots grazed my shields. The second volley wouldn't miss. Then a Vaelori cruiser interposed itself between us, taking the hits meant for me. I watched it shudder, watched escape pods launch as it began to break apart. Cole, get clear. Veyra's voice was sharp. We have the target. Get clear now. I punched the throttle, racing back toward the Vaelori lines as the battle reached its crescendo behind me. The Kreth command ship's shields finally collapsed. The concentrated fire of the Vaelori fleet tore it apart. And just like that, the Kreth formation shattered. Without their commander, the remaining dreadnoughts fell into confusion. Their attacks became uncoordinated, desperate. The Vaelori fleet, still tight in formation, picked them apart one by one. I made it back to the flagship's hangar bay with my shields at 3% and my hands shaking. When the bay doors closed behind me, I sat in the cockpit for a long moment, just breathing. We'd won. But as I climbed out of the fighter and saw the damage reports scrolling across the hangar's displays, 14 Vaelori ships destroyed, thousands dead, I knew the cost. Victory always has a price. The aftermath of battle is never glorious. I stood on the observation deck of Veyra's flagship, watching the recovery operations. Rescue ships moved through the debris field, searching for survivors. There wouldn't be many. The door hissed open behind me. You should be in medical. Veyra's voice. She moved to stand beside me, her reflection ghosting in the viewport. She'd removed her armor, wearing simple duty clothes now. She looked tired. Human, almost. I've had worse, I doubt that. She was quiet for a moment. The cruiser that shielded you, the Starfall's Grace, Captain Moreth commanded her for 30 years. He had a mate. Children. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry, don't be. He made his choice. She turned to look at me, as did you. You could have run. Could have let us die and escaped in the chaos. Instead, you risked your life for people you had every reason to hate. I told you. Some things are bigger than old grudges. Yes. You did. She was quiet again. I have fought humans for 6 years, Marcus Cole. I have killed them. Watched them kill my people. I believed your species to be lesser, primitive, driven by fear and selfishness. Some of us are. Some of every species is. She turned to face me fully. But today, I watched a human crash into my ship, drag himself from the wreckage, and then risk everything to save people who would have executed him without a second thought. That is not the action of a lesser being. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. The war between our peoples, she continued, it was engineered. The Kreth manipulated us both, theft us false intelligence, staged attacks to look like the other side. We have been fighting their war for them while they prepared to destroy us both. I suspected as much. I sighed. The attack on Helios Station, it never made sense tactically. Why would the Vaelori waste resources on a minor outpost? We didn't. The Kreth did, wearing our colors. Her jaw tightened. They have played us for fools. So what happens now? Veyra moved closer. In the dim light of the observation deck, her copper eyes seemed to glow. Now, I return to my government with evidence of Kreth manipulation. I will argue for a ceasefire with your people. An alliance, perhaps, against the true enemy. They won't listen. Your people hate us. My people respect strength. And today, a single human showed more courage than many of my own officers. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. I will make them listen. And if you can't, then I will find another way. She held my gaze. I am not in the habit of abandoning those who have earned my respect, Marcus Cole. Something passed between us in that moment. Not romance, not yet. But possibility. The first fragile threads of something that could grow, given time. I should return you to your people, she said. There is a Terran outpost 2 systems from here. I can have you there within a day, and then, we see what the future holds. She turned to leave, then paused. When the alliance is formed, and it will be formed, I will need a liaison, someone who understands both our peoples, someone I trust. You trust me. You crashed into my flagship and then saved my fleet. That almost smile again. Trust is perhaps too strong a word, but I am curious about you, Marcus Cole. I would like to understand how a species so fragile produces individuals so stubborn. I laughed, actually laughed. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in years. Do not let it go to your head. She walked toward the door, then stopped one final time. When the call comes, will you answer? I thought about Helios Station. About the friends I'd lost, the years I'd spent running from that memory. About the Vaelori ships burning in the void, and the captain who died to save a human he'd never met. Yeah, I said. I'll answer. She nodded once, a gesture that somehow conveyed more than words could. Then I will see you again, Marcus Cole. Try not to crash into anything before then. The door closed behind her. I stood alone on the observation deck, watching the stars wheel slowly past. Somewhere out there, the Kreth were regrouping, planning their next move. Somewhere out there, 2 species that had been killing each other for 6 years were about to learn they'd been manipulated. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. And maybe, just maybe, something more. The end to YouTube description, 1,000 characters, a Hornet-class interceptor. A failed retreat. 2 seconds of alarms, Then Marcus Cole slams straight into a Vaelori dreadnought and carves a trench through its command deck. He should be executed on the spot. Instead, Commander Veyra, 7 feet of white gold armor and molten copper eyes, drags him from the wreckage and holds a blade to his throat. Until he says the one thing that can't be ignored: the Kreth are about to kill you the same way they killed us. In the middle of a collapsing battle line, Marcus forces the Vaelori to abandon doctrine, collapse into a fist, and strike est. First. Then he volunteers for a near-suicide run in an alien interceptor to identify the Kreth command ship, because if it survives, both species die. Enemies become assets. Assets become allies. And the first thread of trust is forged in debris, blood, and a decision that shouldn't exist, to save the people who would have killed you yesterday. Key keywords: HFI, Sci-Fİ, space battle, alien flagship, crash landing, prisoner ally, enemy alliance, tactical genius, fighter interception, dreadnought, Kreth ambush, ceasefire, interspecies war, Commander Veyra, Marcus, ceasefire, interspecies war. Commander Veyra, Marcus. Cole, space opera, boarding action, fleet tactics, humanity fuck, yay, fuck, yay.